Hello and welcome back to the Challenges and Icons interview series, and today I'm talking to Anthony Fletcher, who's the CEO of graze.com. Well, launched in 2008, graze.com revolutionised and reinvented the world of healthy and convenient snacking by creating a snacking subscription service delivering healthy, tasty snacks and fruit by post. So graze.com was started by 7 friends who felt their taste buds and waistlines were suffering at the hands of average snacks. And they started inventing snacks that showed off health's more pleasurable side and working out the best ways to get them into like-minded and busy foodies. So the man who is the pioneer behind this very healthy brand is CEO Anthony Fletcher. With educational accolades from Princeton and the London School of Business and Finance, Anthony was formerly the Innovations Manager at Innocent Drinks Limited. And so it is with great pleasure that I'm going to go inside their studios and talk to Anthony and welcome him to the Challenges and Icons podcast. Well, Anthony, it's a real pleasure to have you on Challenges and Icons today. I'm a big fan of your brand. And I think I just wanted to start out talking about the sort of the business success behind Graze. And you know, there was an interesting anecdote you told me that you started out on the day that Lehman Brothers collapsed in 2008, which is of course the date that we can track back to the global financial crisis. And now you're a huge success. What do you think is the key to achieving that success in that relatively short period of time?
So Graze has gone from the bedroom to £50 million in around 5 years, and it's continuing to grow really, really quickly. I think what Graze has, which is very unusual, is the way it embraces technology. And this is a real facilitator which can help your business in lots of different ways. In fact, it has very unusual origins. Many of the people who came together to form Graze came from a company called Love Film, which was famous for sending DVDs through the post, and built this fantastic infrastructure and way of communicating with their customers. And there was a problem in this industry. People started to download DVDs, and these people asked themselves, well, you know, what should we go and do with this fantastic technology and this fantastic way of interacting with the customer? And they thought, food, that can't be downloaded. We should go and look at what we can do there.
Brilliant. And that sort of really ties into my next question, which is about the role of design and technology. You've managed to fuse technology and design of the brand and the experience of the brand incredibly well, and so talk to me a little bit about that as you've expanded, how you've embraced that even further. I know that there are how many people do you say? 400 people working for you globally?
There's 400 people working for Graze.
And yet there is an incredible infusion of technology behind everything as well. So what's the future?
So kind of what we think is there's this enormous market, this enormous food market, and so much of it is transacted through retailers or through shops or very traditional ways. And what technology lets you do is have the relationship directly with the consumer. And this just has so many different advantages. You can communicate with them directly. So you can tell them things, which is difficult to do via a retailer. It also lets you have data, which comes back and lets you have an ongoing relationship with them. So just to give you an example, one of the things which is quite unusual about Graze is how vertically integrated it is. Not only do we have the relationship with the consumer, but we also make all of our own foods. Now, by having all of these things, you can do things very differently. So for instance, we iterate on our new product development very fast. We launch a product. If the customer doesn't like it, we find out very quickly why that is, and with our own manufacturing we can respond. So Graze has probably launched about 1,000 products to get to the 140 it has today. We launch a new product pretty much every week.
And that I think that's an amazing embracing of kind of failure, if you like. It's kind of like, well, let's try something, and if it doesn't work, we'll move on. And so perfection, failure, and innovation, and then the whole creative process is embedded within the company. It seems to me from afar, and means that you're able to respond very quickly. But I think that also the it can't be underestimated the value of the experience when the consumer receives the package through the post. They just are receiving something which they themselves have been part of the creation of it, I guess. And the identity in the packaging is all part of that.
Of course, absolutely. So we're not just a product. What we can put around it is the whole sense of service. So for instance, one of the things we can do, which a traditional retailer would struggle with, is personalize our boxes. And this isn't just about the messaging you give the customer. This is the mix of products or the service you can give them. So we have people who sign up and they're on a diet. They let us know this, and instantly we can curate for them products which are suitable for their diet. We have customers who come to us and they're lactose intolerant. Normally they'd have to spend hours walking around the shelves examining products to try and find those those dairy-free products. What we can do is personalize the product to them. So you're absolutely right. The relationship means that you are a service brand as well as a product brand, and by being a service brand, you can bring new benefits to the customer.
It's an incredibly brave model because of the fact that the innovation is embedded in the day-to-day basis of it, and it's responding to people's needs and a shift in people's eating habits. And it's no surprise then that you've been a big success in America. And I with our research running up to this, we noticed that you've been tailoring some of your products to a more US specific taste. Have you also adjusted the whole brand message, the design, and the verbalization as well as the product profile to suit that market?
So I think you hinted on this earlier. Graze's whole approach is very different because of this vertical integration, because we're only beholden to our consumers and maybe don't have complex retailer relationships. We're allowed to fail fast as long as we respond quickly to the needs. So we launched in America in a very unusual way. We looked at the way Tesco had done it. They'd done years of market research and then they committed to a bold strategy. We did the opposite. What we did was come up with a minimum viable product for the American consumer, and we sent it to them, and then we relied on the feedback the American consumer gave us to understand how we should change the brand to suit them. And what this meant is we weren't surprised by any of those terrible unknowns you often get when you go internationally. I've certainly been there. Brands can get it very wrong, taking themselves to another territory.
And well, that's something I can relate to as well. Having a business in America as well, it's you simply can't just take what exists in England, for example, and plonk it over there. You have to adapt and adjust your tone of voice and respond to those markets' needs, and yet at the same time deliver something of quality, which is at the heart of what you stand for. So the American expansion is phenomenal, and congratulations on everything that you've done there. And it's interesting because you also mentioned a little bit earlier that some of the people behind the setup have come from the Love Film background, and you have been compared to the Netflix of the food and snacking kind of market, and there's a lot of subscription service brands that are going on. Do you think Graze will continue to drive the personal engagement with its brand with this model for the foreseeable future, or do you see expansion beyond that particular model?
Well, I think what we're seeing is a couple of interesting indicators in the market beside Graze's success. General Mills, one of the world's largest companies, food companies, have launched a product very similar to Graze because they're very interested in those benefits, going directly to the consumer, personalization, what new benefits can you bring? There's been a huge wave of investment in food technology brands over the last 6 months on the west coast of America. So I do think that many people are looking at this like us, this market so large with all these complex consumer issues and how technology can disrupt it.
Well, good luck with all your future plans, and Nibbler, which is the General Mills snack service that you just mentioned. One, if one was being cynical, could say is a very flattering imitation of what you had pioneered and basically established as the sort of the first person into the marketplace. So as we've got major competitors coming in, and we know that snacking is a global phenomenon, and there are mega corporate businesses out there which are all about just snacking. What do you see are your biggest business challenges against that kind of backdrop as you have opened up this market and now other people are coming in?
Well, absolutely. We're very flattered by General Mills entering the market. We see it as a real validation of something which we feel we've believed passionately for many years and now seems to be gaining a wider acceptance. But the entrepreneur will win here who is flexible and fast, because this story is only just beginning and everyone's only just really learning about what these type of businesses can and can't do. So, that's why I'd back Graze.
Well, I would too. I think just being here in your business premises today, it's very clear, looking at the kind of the way that you experiment with technology and conceptualization, and we're sitting here in the R&D kitchen. There's a flood of ideas here, which I can see is going to be the backbone of your future success. And I think inevitably, you are first into a market where there is a huge and growing awareness and need for healthier sort of food products. Your business is growing, as the evidence says, and I suppose the inevitable kind of destiny of brands like yours, where you're seeing rapid growth and success and pioneering kind of way of doing things, is that you become ripe for acquisition or merger or takeover. I'm not asking you to tell me anything specific, but what are your views on how brands like yours, which inherently can start out being very healthy, very well-meaning, what are the challenges as they grow and become successful and then face the inevitable acquisition?
Okay. Well, Graze has always had different groups of shareholders, and we've actually changed between those shareholders a number of times. And I think what's really important for me is, are your shareholders, do they share your vision, and do they want to go to the same place? And sometimes they can be hugely helpful in getting you there, as well as maybe the risks you alluded to. And two, do they respect how the culture of the company can be so important for helping you achieve that vision? I think if they're aligned behind the vision and they respect your culture and your way of approaching that, I think you can work very well together. Which is
kind of almost identical words to what James Freeman of Blue Bottle Coffee said earlier to me in the series, who is who's really sort of pioneered a new approach to coffee, and his investors do match his vision and his values. In fact, go out of their way to sort of do anything but disrupt those values. And I imagine that is a modern way of kind of helping businesses facilitate their destiny, their brand. And I think there is a huge global destiny for brands like yours. I just want to return to this theme of innovation, technology and innovation. It seems to me you are a bit of a pioneer and a benchmark for the way that you kind of innovate. Could you just give me a few more examples of the way that you might respond to, say, a new product idea or a consumer? What's driving your innovation? What is the way that you approach innovation? Then how does technology then help deliver that to the consumer?
Okay, I'll give you maybe a couple of examples. I think the first one is our box. It's quite an unusual item. It's part of our success. It's part of our brand. It stands out in the office. It draws attention. It's utility. It it travels through the mail or through the post in the UK, and it's innocuous enough to land on a desk. But it is a problem. It does not have any glue in it. They were originally hand-folded by Graze, which is a lovely idea, but is maybe not scalable. And one day we had to decide, should we change our box? Should we bring in a box folding machine of some type, which would have let us, lower our costs and scale? And we decided, no, we don't think we should change our box. This is really important, part of who we are. So, an engineer in the factory actually built a robot which can fold cardboard in 19 different ways, and we now have these robots in the factory which fold our Graze boxes, which solves our manufacturing issue, but at the other end of the spectrum still gives us something which we think is really important for the consumer.
Yeah, indeed, and you're able also to modify the actual kind of the graphics and the kind of the customization of the packaging as well, I believe, here and there.
So correct. Early on we started to realize this kind of fail fast mentality, this being able to be incredibly responsive, was something unique to us and also something we really enjoyed. So, using technology, for instance, we have built an application where a graphic designer in this building can upload designs directly to our manufacturing lines. And we have dynamic printing presses on the line, which will produce their design at the same time as the product is being produced. Our product developers, similarly, have access to a similar application. They can sit here and program remotely the machines in our factory which make our snacks. This combination of things means that if someone has an idea, 24 hours later, you can be looking at a scalable product you can send to consumers. 24 hours later, the consumer has received that and they're responding with their rating. So sometimes, you're 48 hours away from finding out whether something, really works or not.
And that is a fantastic insight, I think, into the future of sort of brands in general, as technology in the way that you're describing it, and a mindset, and the kind of the whole approach to making swift changes in a responsive way that all nurture what the brand is all about. I think it's a salient lesson to many a marketeer who spends a lot of money on research and also development, and without actually getting something to market to show for it at the end of it. That this is a great new model, and I think it's terrific. I wanted to talk about food culture now. A lot of the work that we do that supports our design thinking is supported by research into the future of food and drink, the human body, and a number of other different areas. And one of the things that we've sort of been noticing recently is that whilst there is a sort of a massive shift towards health and convenience, there is also a real desire for brands that create long-lasting and deep experiences. And I just wondered if you have been noticing that, or what other shifts that you think are having the greatest impact in the area of food culture.
It's interesting. I think there's different enemies. There is unhealthy food, which is fine if you want to indulge or have a treat, but there's rather a lot of it, a lot around. But there's also this mindless eating, when you eat a piece of food without maybe fully appreciating it. Maybe sometimes you don't even realise that you're eating. And Graze, you're right, wants to create more of an experience, more of a moment, have this really special moment where the person who has put the product together can communicate the concepts behind the idea. And that definitely translates to a greater appreciation of that product as well.
Do you see yourself sitting in a world of complementary brands that deliver experiences? Do you have a sort of a reference set that you kind of admire or look at that are delivering experiences in similar ways but in maybe different sectors?
Yes, I think there's certainly a lot of analogues, and that's, as you said, the wonderful thing about food is it's just a melting pot in this country at the moment, and every day you see something new and exciting, or a different approach to a problem. In terms of brands, what I particularly admire at the moment is a lot of what the retailers are actually doing and how they are building experiences around the products or new ways of presenting the product to the customer. So, for instance, our local Whole Foods, it's somewhere between a supermarket and somewhere you might go to eat some lunch, and I think that's a very interesting space in terms of the communication of experiences.
Brilliant. So let's just talk about marketing. You have been kind of mentioning as we go through it, it seems like it's a totally infused culture of creativity, marketing, and innovation and product development. But what has helped you build your profile the most in these very dramatic years since 2008? Is it word of mouth? Is it social media? What's been the driver of growth for you and building awareness for the brand?
I think fundamentally Graze is a very unusual concept, and when it enters someone's life, it makes an impact on them, because it is just such a different way of approaching a problem, and that is something they talk to their co-workers about, or maybe share their snacks. So word of mouth, we have definitely seen, is the springboard which got us out of the blocks in the UK.
And it's definitely, I think, Graze is definitely a talking point when it arrives. And in our studio there are several subscribers, and you know full well that your brand is having an impact when you see that literally being shared around the studio, and goodie boxes being shared in the afternoon when people are just having their kind of like their afternoon lull. And there's there is literally a physical sharing of product and brand when that takes place. So word of mouth, of course, is incredibly important. And long may that continue for you. And I suspect with the American market, it's going to be the challenge is scale, I would imagine.
Well, what we've seen, and why has Graze continued to be successful in the UK, is that we have managed to move beyond the initial buzz of word of mouth. What we found was this was very young professionals. This was about predominantly working women, creating communities where maybe they all graze together. What we have found as we have grown is actually we're bringing in some very radical new segments, or maybe not radical, maybe surprising, especially kind of suburban housewives. So for them, this is still a treat they receive. This is still a snack which they can enjoy, which is allowed, and the vision of the brand is just as relevant for them as it is for some young professional in an office environment. So a much more widely accepted proposition than you may immediately think.
Yeah, and also just talk about children, and I know you have a product specifically designed for children, and they are notoriously a difficult market to sort of get to snack healthily, and yet you seem to be successfully getting in there, and well.
So it's quite ironic. I mean, the insight which powers our kids box is how in this day and age children never receive mail. So ironically, for a technology brand, by sending them a piece of mail which is addressed to them is a really special moment for a child and makes them reevaluate the box and what the contents can mean for them, which obviously really pleases the parents when they snack on something they may not have expected them to like.
Yeah, it's the complete opposite of junk mail.
It is, yes.
And junk food, of course, as well. So, I think one of the themes that's just coming through here, and before this interview started, I kind of, we had a chat about sort of bravery and failure, and you were like, well, I don't think we're particularly brave, but it seems to be that you are very brave, but it's just masked by the fact that is just in the company's DNA. Everyone seems to be behind this idea of innovating fast and bringing great products to people, permission to fail. And so this is terrific in the sense that you actually embrace risk, but you minimize it at the same time. And so mistakes clearly matter to you. It's important that you do make mistakes and learn from them so that you can perfect something, is the way that I've been seeing things. So if you were giving advice to an entrepreneur that's out there at the moment that's considering getting their great idea off the ground, what advice would you give them in the area of risk and bravery and that theme?
I think what both from Graze and from Innocent Drinks really resonated with me is how can you test your product with consumers and get that real feedback from them? So how do you not bet the company in those early stages, but instead try to learn as much as possible, as quickly as possible, and be very, very nimble. Be open-minded. You may not get it right straight away. It may not even be plan B. I think Graze is probably on plan F at the moment in terms of the different products we've iterated with and our different theories on how to approach this opportunity.
Great. Well, it's clearly it's a healthy business in many senses, and I think it's a terrific success story, and I think your future remains to be very healthy indeed. So congratulations on everything you've done so far, and thank you very much for taking part today and talking to us.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Thank you.